I was raised believing that family always came first, and when my younger sister got engaged, I was genuinely thrilled for her. Until the invitations were sent out, and my name wasn't anywhere on them. When I asked why, my mother gave me that cold, well-practiced smile and said, "It's better if you don't come, Clara. You'd ruin the atmosphere." I let out a quiet laugh, pretending it didn't hurt, though something inside me cracked. They wanted a flawless family portrait without the one person who never matched their expectations, so I stayed quiet, didn't argue, didn't plead, and instead began planning something they would never be able to overlook. 2 months later, while they continued posting filtered wedding photos online, mine went viral because my wedding guest list wasn't just local, it was global, and when my mother saw who sat in the front row, she fainted. My name is Clara, and I grew up in a family that looked perfect from the outside. Big house, polished smiles, coordinated Christmas cards. Everything seemed ideal, yet beneath it all, I always felt like the stray piece that never quite fit the puzzle. My parents, especially my mother, were obsessed with appearances, and my younger sister Lily was their golden child. Graceful, social, effortlessly adored, while I was the quieter one, focused on academics and my career. Mom used to joke that I was the serious one, though there was always a thin layer of disappointment under her words. Still, I loved them. Every dinner, every birthday, I showed up with gifts, effort, and loyalty, believing it mattered. But love in our family demanded obedience, conformity, and silence. I learned to smile through discomfort, to pretend everything was fine even when I felt invisible. When Lily got engaged, I believed it was my chance to make things right, to be part of something beautiful for her, not knowing it would shatter the illusion I'd defended all my life. The engagement was announced during a family dinner. Lily stood beaming, showing off a diamond so large it glittered under the dim chandelier, my parents clapping, Dad looking proud enough to burst. Everyone cheering except me, not because I wasn't happy, but because I was stunned. She hadn't told me anything. "Clara, aren't you excited?" my mom asked, noticing my silence. "I am," I answered quickly, forcing a smile. "Congratulations, Lily. He's absolutely perfect for you." Lily hugged me with that affectionate warmth she saved for public moments, whispering, "You'll help me plan, right? You've always had great taste." That tiny sentence sparked something inside me. Maybe this time, I could finally feel included. I began sketching ideas. Venues, decor, flowers, themes. I even made a Pinterest board that very night. But within the next few days, I noticed they didn't truly want my help. Every suggestion I offered was met with, "Oh, we already picked that." Or, "Lily's fiancé's family has a hidden planner." By the end of the week, my messages in the family chat sat unread. I brushed it off, convincing myself they were just busy, though deep down I felt the quiet distance forming between us. Days slipped into weeks, and Lily's wedding became the center of every family conversation. My mom called occasionally, but only to talk about fittings, tastings, or the expanding guest list. She never once said, "You should join us." Still, I tried staying connected. I sent ideas for table layouts, lighting, even possible playlist options. Every time I received the same gentle dismissal, "Thanks, sweetheart, but we've already decided." It wasn't the actual words that hurt. It was the tone. That soft, polite way of pushing me aside without saying it outright. I'd sit alone in my apartment scrolling through family photos, Lily trying on gowns, Dad shaking hands with her fiancé, Mom crying happy tears, and I wasn't in a single one. When I brought it up once, Mom said, "Oh, sweetie, you're always working. We didn't want to inconvenience you." I smiled, said it was fine, then went to bed early, staring at the ceiling and wondering when I became a guest in my own family. The next morning, I woke up to see a new family group chat titled Wedding Week. I wasn't in it. I only found out because my cousin accidentally sent me a screenshot. They were planning the bridal brunch, the seating chart, even joking about how peaceful the ceremony would be without Clara's serious vibe. That one stung. When I texted Mom, she replied, "Oh, honey, it's just for logistics. Nothing personal." I wanted to trust her, but logistics somehow included every family member except me. That night, I muted the old group chat, the one they no longer used. My phone stayed silent, just like my place in their world. Still, I convinced myself it was just miscommunication. Families mess up sometimes, right? That's what I kept repeating to myself, until the invitations were mailed out. It began when a coworker who followed Lily on social media casually asked, "So, when's your flight for the wedding?" My stomach dropped. What flight? Oh, didn't she send you an invitation? The post said it's a destination wedding. Venice. Venice. My dream city, the place I'd talked about visiting for years. That evening, I checked the mailbox again, still empty. I called my mom, and she answered on the third ring. "Mom, I never got an invite." There was a pause before she spoke in her calm, rehearsed tone. "Oh, Clara, it's just that the guest list is tight, and Lily's fiancé's family has so many relatives." I stayed silent, gripping my phone as she added softly, "You'll understand, honey. It's better this way." "Better for who?" I wanted to shout, but instead whispered, "Sure, Mom. Whatever you think is best." She thanked me for being mature, a word that suddenly felt more like a scolding. A week before the wedding, I visited my parents. The house overflowed with laughter, dresses, and flowers, but the moment I stepped in, the air shifted. Too quiet, too polite. Mom pulled me aside. "Clara, please don't be upset." "Upset? You're acting like I don't exist." She sighed. "You'd ruin the atmosphere. You know how you get. So serious. Always judging. It's Lily's big day, and we can't risk tension." I froze. "You think I'd ruin her wedding?" Mom gave a sad smile. "It's better if you don't come, Clara. Truly." Something inside me cracked. Not in anger, but in understanding. They didn't just forget me. They removed me. I walked out quietly, leaving behind a house full of laughter that no longer sounded like home. That night, I sat on my balcony, staring at the city lights as my phone buzzed with photos from Lily's rehearsal dinner. My parents smiling wide, captions overflowing with affection. I didn't comment or react. I just stared. For the first time in my life, I didn't cry. I felt empty, then strangely steady. Maybe they didn't need me, but I realized I didn't need them either. I opened my laptop and looked at my calendar, my fiancé Ethan's name glowing on a scheduled call for the next day. Suddenly, an idea formed. Quiet, refined, unstoppable. They wanted me erased from their celebration? Fine. But at my own wedding, they wouldn't just remember me. They'd never forget me again. The Monday before Lily's ceremony, I sat in my office pretending to focus on spreadsheets, while coworkers chatted about vacations and weddings, each word feeling like a reminder etched into my ribs. My mom's texts rolled in like tiny cuts. "We're boarding for Venice." Everyone's thrilled. And Lily looks like a princess. I forced smiles at anyone who glanced my way, telling people I'd just rest at home for the weekend, though all I could picture was them clinking champagne glasses beneath chandeliers. The silence of my apartment felt heavier than ever. By 5 p.m., I made a quiet promise to myself. If they couldn't see my value, I'd stop fighting for their approval. From now on, I'd move in silence just like they taught me, only this time, silence wouldn't mean defeat. 2 days later, My Instagram feed flooded with images of Venice. Lily looked stunning in lace, standing beside her groom beneath golden lights, while my parents stood proudly, glowing with happiness, and my cousin tagged everyone except me. At first, my chest tightened, but then something inside me went quiet. Mia, my best friend, called that night and asked softly, "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. But as I scrolled through hundreds of pictures, something surprising happened. I didn't feel envy. I felt clarity. I was done being the family's silent shadow. If they could cast me aside so easily, then I could create something they would never be able to erase. When I closed the app, I smiled for the first time in days. Not from joy, but from a rising sense of power. When I returned to work, people asked, "Didn't your sister just get married? Why weren't you there?" I laughed lightly and said I'd been busy with some projects. They looked stunned but didn't press, though I could see the quiet pity in their eyes. It hurt, but I refused to show it. Later that evening, riding home on the train, I thought again about those photos. The extravagant venue, the designer dress, the perfect smiles. They had all the luxury, but none of the sincerity. And that's when it struck me. My family didn't understand authenticity. They only cared about spectacle. And if spectacle was their language, then I would speak it fluently. Only better. That weekend, I met Mia for brunch, and she listened carefully as I told her everything, from the "better if you don't come" line to the Venice wedding. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "They don't deserve you, but I hope you show them exactly what they threw away." I gave a faint smile. "Revenge?" She grinned. "No. Reinvention." Her words echoed through my mind all day. Reinvention. It felt right. By the time I got home, I had opened my planner and scribbled one sentence across the page. My wedding. My rules. Ethan called that night. "You've been quiet lately," he said gently. "Just thinking," I replied. "About our wedding?" He hesitated. "You mean?" "Yes," I said. "I want us to plan it our way. Not small, not muted. I want it to be everything they believed I didn't deserve." He chuckled, asking, "You want to shock them?" "No," I said with a growing smile. "I want to redefine what family means." For the first time, I didn't feel like the overlooked daughter or the background sister. I felt like someone reclaiming her own story. Ethan turned out to be more supportive than I ever expected. "You've spent your life letting people decide your worth," he told me. "Let's make this wedding about you, about us." Evenings were spent researching venues, color palettes, and guest lists. He wanted an intimate beach ceremony. I wanted something grand but warm. We realized we could have both. He never once brought up my family. Maybe he knew I wasn't ready, or maybe he trusted I'd decide when the time felt right. I had never experienced this kind of partnership before. Quiet strength standing beside mine. For the first time, I felt like I was building something that belonged entirely to me. 3 months later, our plans were in full swing, but I didn't share a single update online. No hashtags, no posts, no hints. Only our closest friends knew. Even Mia dubbed it Operation Redemption. While Lily posted her honeymoon selfies and my mother boasted about her perfect family, I remained invisible online. Invisible, but far from idle. Behind the scenes, I had secured a stunning coastal venue, a designer who understood storytelling through fashion, and a videographer specializing in cinematic captures. No one knew it yet, but my wedding wouldn't just be an event, it would be a statement, not of bitterness, but of brilliance. And when the world finally saw it, my family would understand what silence had been quietly preparing for. Working in marketing had its advantages. I knew people, designers, event planners, even PR specialists, and had spent years cultivating networks others overlooked. Now it was time to use them. One evening, after a long meeting, I stayed back at the office and sent 3 messages. One to a global event planner I had once helped with a campaign, one to a PR firm in Milan, and one to a designer brand we'd recently collaborated with. Within 24 hours, I had responses. They remembered me not as the quiet one, but as Clara, the professional who always delivered. It felt empowering. No family approval, no conditional affection, just respect earned on my own terms. That night, I opened my planner again, knowing my wedding wouldn't simply be an event, it would be a masterpiece. Ethan and I chose a date exactly 2 months after Lily's wedding. Symbolic, poetic, deliberate. When I told Mia, she raised an eyebrow. "You're really doing this completely?" I smiled. Not out of spite, but out of peace. We began booking flights for our closest circle of friends, Ethan's colleagues, my creative contacts, and a few key clients who love to travel. Everyone was thrilled. Meanwhile, my family assumed I was still sulking over being left out. Mom sent the occasional guilt-laden text, "You'll find your own happiness soon." I smiled at that. If only she knew how soon. The invitations themselves were works of art. Handcrafted envelopes sealed with gold leaf, containing a card embossed with just 5 simple words in silver, a celebration of truth and love, each one carrying a QR code linking to a private RSVP site. Only trusted guests received access. I mailed the invitations quietly, bypassing my family entirely. The guest list wasn't just friends, it included high-profile clients, entrepreneurs, and journalists. Mia laughed when she saw it. "This is insane. You realize your wedding might trend?" "That's the idea," I said softly. The wedding wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my story. And if the world happened to witness what true elegance looked like, that was merely a bonus. One night, while reviewing the plans, an idea struck me. What if the event gave back? I contacted a children's charity I had supported for years, and together we devised a plan. The entire wedding would be live-streamed globally, with proceeds from donations funding education for underprivileged kids. It wasn't just a wedding anymore, it was purpose, wrapped in beauty. When I told Ethan, his eyes softened. "That's exactly why I love you," he said, unknowingly strengthening my resolve. My family thought I was selfish, detached. Soon, the world would see the real me, and they would have to face what they had discarded. A week later, my designer called from Paris. "Clara, we're creating something special," she said. A gown that told my story. She sent sketches, soft silk, ocean-inspired hues, pearls stitched like constellations. It wasn't flashy. It was quietly powerful. When I tried it on for the first time, I felt transformed. Not as the forgotten sister, not as the rejected daughter, but as a woman who had finally chosen herself. In the mirror, I whispered, "This is who I've always been." And somehow, that reflection smiled back with pride. It began subtly. A tweet from a fashion blogger about a secret luxury wedding collaboration, then a mention in a digital magazine. Within days, the hashtag #SawTheCoastalBride started circulating online. No one knew it was me. Brands reached out, offering floral sponsorships and decor setups, and a global PR team pitched it as a modern fairy tale wedding with purpose. Ethan grinned. "You're becoming a mystery celebrity." "Let's keep it that way," I said. My family still hadn't noticed. They were too busy posting post-wedding throwbacks. Little did they know, my celebration would soon eclipse everything they had ever boasted about. Weeks passed, and the world buzzed quietly about the mysterious bride. My parents remained blissfully unaware. Mom sent another text. "Hope you're not still upset. Lily wants to visit soon." I didn't reply. I was done explaining myself to people who never tried to understand me. Instead, I double-checked the final guest confirmations. My PR contact confirmed live streaming details, and the charity platform was ready. Everything was in place. As I watched the sun set over the ocean, I whispered, "They excluded me from their story, but now the world will watch mine unfold." And somewhere deep inside, the silence that had once wounded me now felt like the calm before a perfect storm. The day finally arrived. The sun kissed the horizon as golden waves lapped against white sand, and guests began arriving from around the world, elegant, excited, and completely unaware of the mysterious bride's identity. I stood in a quiet room overlooking the ocean, my gown glimmering softly in the morning light. Ethan entered, smiling. "You ready?" I nodded. More than ever, cameras began rolling. The event was being live-streamed across multiple platforms under the title The Coastal Bride, a celebration for change. Meanwhile, across town, my mom texted again, "Dinner tomorrow?" I smiled and replied simply, "You might be busy watching something tonight." She had no idea that in less than an hour, her forgotten daughter would be trending worldwide. As the ceremony began, a soft instrumental of Claire de Lune filled the air. Guests whispered in awe as the floral arch shimmered with cascading orchids. When I walked down the aisle, the cameras zoomed in and social media erupted. "It's Clara Whitmore," one post read, "the sister who was left out of her family's wedding, now hosting the global wedding of the year." Within minutes, the hashtag #Clara Whitmore wedding was everywhere. Ethan squeezed my hand and whispered, "The world's watching." "I know," I replied, smiling. "Let them." Thousands tuned in live, not for gossip, but because the ceremony was genuinely breathtaking. As I spoke my vows, I felt something powerful. Peace. Immediately after, I turned to the guests and cameras. "Ethan and I wanted this day to be more than a celebration of love," I said softly. "We wanted it to mean something." Behind us, a screen lit up showing the charity link, allowing viewers to donate directly to fund education for children worldwide. Within minutes, donations poured in, my phone buzzing endlessly with notifications of love, support, and generosity. Reporters called it the most meaningful modern wedding ever streamed. Ethan whispered, "This is bigger than we imagined." I nodded. That's the point. For once, my name isn't tied to pity or exclusion. It's tied to purpose. Halfway through the reception, my phone erupted with frantic messages from Mom. "Clara, what is this? Why didn't you tell us? It's everywhere." Then Lily's text arrived. "So this is payback." I stared at it for a moment before replying. "Me? No. This is peace." Mia laughed when she saw my phone. "They must be losing it." "Probably," I said, sipping champagne. But that wasn't my concern anymore. For years, I'd tried to earn their approval. Now they were scrambling to earn my attention. The irony wasn't bitter. It was liberating. By the next morning, every news outlet was covering it. Sister excluded from wedding host's global charity ceremony. From rejection to redemption, Clara Whitmore's powerful celebration. Donations surpassed $1.5 million within 24 hours. When I saw the headlines, I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure. The silence I once endured had transformed into a global voice. Mom tried calling again, but I let it ring. She had never understood my silence before, and now she could sit with her own. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter. I felt like the author of my own story. 3 days later, I finally answered her call. "Clara," Mom began, voice shaky, "you humiliated us." "No," I said calmly. "I just lived my life. You chose to erase me. The world simply reminded you I exist." She went quiet. "I didn't do it for revenge," I continued. "I did it because I deserve to be seen, and because kindness deserves the spotlight more than cruelty." "You could have told us," she whispered. You could have invited me, I replied. Silence stretched between us. Then she murmured, You looked beautiful. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. A week later, the last of the wedding footage went viral again, this time on a morning show. Hosts praised the event's impact, calling it a symbol of quiet power. I sat with Ethan, coffee in hand, watching it replay. You changed the narrative, he said. No, I replied gently. I just told the truth. When I checked the charity dashboard, totals had crossed $2 million that night. Scrolling through the endless supportive comments, I realized something profound. My revenge had never been about destruction. It was transformation. The family who once excluded me now existed in a world where my name symbolized compassion, success, and strength. I had rewritten the legacy they tried to erase. They thought it was over, but it wasn't. The morning after the wedding video went viral, my phone exploded with messages. News outlets hailed it as the most inclusive wedding of the year. The real shock came when my mother posted a long public apology, tagging me. We should have celebrated her all along. I didn't reply. For years, I had begged for their approval. Now, they were begging for mine. It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was closure. Seeing her words beneath my trending video, I realized I finally had it. My sister called next, voice trembling between guilt and envy. Everyone's talking about your wedding, Clara. Even the people who ignored you. I smiled faintly. That's the point, isn't it? She paused. Mom's embarrassed. Dad's furious. I said gently, They'll survive. I did. Before hanging up, she whispered, You really changed the story. For once, she didn't sound condescending. Just honest. That was enough. A week later, my parents showed up at my office unannounced, bringing flowers and a photo album labeled Family. I didn't invite them in. I simply said, Thank you. But I had already built one of my own. They stood speechless as I closed the door. The power wasn't in anger. It was in finally choosing peace over approval. The video reached 10 million views. Wedding magazines called for interviews, praising it as a symbol of self-respect and reinvention. I accepted one simply to say, It's not about revenge. It's about reclaiming the space they said I didn't deserve. Viewers loved it. I became the voice for everyone ever excluded. Months later, I sent one last invitation to a quiet dinner on the anniversary of my wedding. My sister came. My parents didn't. We toasted under soft lights, and she said, You didn't destroy them. You just showed them who you are. I smiled. That was always enough. That night, I found a letter slipped under my door, Mom's handwriting. We watched the video again. You looked happy. I hope someday we see you smile like that in person. I folded it carefully. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about letting the silence speak, for you. The next morning, I walked along the beach, barefoot and free. The tide erased every footprint behind me, as if the past had finally let go. I whispered, You thought I'd walk away broken. A wave brushed my ankles, soft and cold, and I walked on, free.